Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. There's been this cute little idea that's been floating around the internet recently that's done nothing but wreak havoc in the D&D community, and I think that... Hello? Oh, it's happening right now? Damn it, fine, I'll be right over. Would y'all mind waiting for a bit? I gotta take care of something. Look, all I'm saying is that you failed your driver's test at least 12 times. You are not cut out for racing. Please, how hard can it be? Oh no, I'm making a left turn. I don't even think you can do that. Keep talking, bozo. My haters motivate me. Well, you better have some damn good airbags in whatever death trap you're driving. No need. We're protected by something better. You know, at this point, I really should have seen that coming. That's right, it's Aura, the sponsor of today's video and our racing career. You ever get a weird text that was clearly written by someone with less than noble intentions? Well, that's because your info was probably leaked and is being sold online by parasitic data brokers. That's why I use Aura. Aura plunges the depths of the internet to find which data brokers are selling your information and submits opt-out requests on your behalf. And unless they want to get a spanking from the law, the data brokers must abide by the request. Check it out. I used Aura to see which data brokers were slinging my details, and I nearly crapped myself when I saw what Aura had to show me. These guys had access to way more info than I was comfortable with, including stuff that can be used to access bank and social media accounts. But Aura smacked him where it hurt, and boom. No more data slinging. After all that, I have full confidence that Aura has everything we need to protect this car. This baby doesn't even need brakes. You are absolutely gonna get yourself killed. Come on, Larry, I'm not that stupid. That Christmas bonus better be a fat f***ing check, Drake, I swear to God.
Little Spoon, this is Big Spoon, checking in.
My feet can't reach the pedals. That's the spirit, Little Spoon, and now check under your passenger seat. I left a little something for you.
No, not that.
Oh, God!
Are you ready to turn left at maximum velocity?
You locked me in a cab with that psychopath? He blew up the Craigslist wizard.
Yeah, he shot me with a rocket.
Wait, he's there with you? I thought you died and had your soul drugged to hell. Larry, you can't just ask someone that. No, but for real though, how are you here?
I'm built different.
He says he's built different.
Don't worry, Larry. With me, your safety is guaranteed. Because I do much more than smart, nosy data brokers. I'm an antivirus software, a fully functional VPN, a password management tool, parental control hub, and much, much more. Plus, I come with $1 million in identity theft insurance. With the power of Aura, our victory is all but guaranteed. But just to be safe, I went ahead and bought us some insurance with all the other drivers.
Racers, start your engines! On your mark, get set,
go! I am become Death, destroyer of data brokers!
And the winner by technicality of the 75th Annual SAS Car Grand Prix and $1 million prize, Lawrence Jackson Colbone Jr. III.
Wait a minute, $1 million? That's enough to retire. I'm free! I'm finally free! I would like to start by thanking my mouth-breathing boss whose incredible stupidity and narcissism brought me here. Without him and all the horrible, unforgivable, and downright brain-dead schemes he's cooked up over the years, I would have never realized that there are truly some people who do not deserve to be happy. I'm spending half of my prize money on hiring bots to report your YouTube channel for violating community guidelines in hopes of getting it deleted. Rotten hell, you oversized ketchup gecko. Okay, now where's my money? What the hell is this? Well, after factoring in all the damage to the track, cars, and ticket refunds, your new prize haul is $7 after tax. Good job. Ketchup Gecko? That's a new one. I'll see you at work tomorrow. Yeah, you will. And I breathe through my nose. Thank you very much. I value my privacy and I value yours too. Click the link in my description or go to aura.com/Den of the Drake to get 2 weeks of Aura protection for free. By far the best way to support my channel, so if you like my content and being safe online, be sure to give Aura a try. Link is in the description. Well, that'll teach me not to expect betrayal from a kobold. I got Larry cleaning the cringe mines with his toothbrush, so maybe the taste of neckbeard sweat will give him a lesson. On to the video! As most of you are aware, there are two entities that have earned my everlasting contempt: the Walt Disney Corporation and the government. And I recently read that both the White House and the Monopoly Mouse were hacked and exposed by our old friends, the Furries. I guess if you don't die as the villain, you'll live long enough to see yourself become the hero. You know, maybe I should ease up on poking the furry community with a stick. After all, yiffing politicians and greedy executives in their wallet is pretty based. And I'm also intimately aware that my own electronics are not nearly as protected as the Pentagon's. I mean, now that I know what the furries are capable of, I'm not trying to have half the United States IT workforce making it their mission to get malware on my smart fridge. But for every hacktivist group oh-woing Mickey Mouse to death, there's a few maladjusted weirdos ooh-wooing innocent Dungeons & Dragons games to an early grave as well. And more often than not, reading about what these degenerates try to get away with has me wishing that the furry hackers would reprogram my brain to forget what my unclean eyes have witnessed. But I don't have Elon's brain chip installed yet, so I'm just gonna share it with you instead. Because we got a furry-themed double hitter today. The first story I have for you stars a player whose furry loins burn hotter than the surface of the sun. Combine that with his incel tendencies and you can see that it's not looking too great for the women of the group. I mean, who could have ever predicted that limiting your flirting game to just role-playing an edgy furry OC could leave you involuntarily celibate? Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Enjoy. This week's story comes from Reddit user NewJoyzy, and it's titled Creepy Incel Furry Ruins the Fun for Everyone. Now let me start this off by saying I have nothing against furries. I kinda am one myself. But everyone knows that people like this guy exist. A friend of mine, I'll call GM for this story, was running a new homebrew campaign, and she wanted me to join. The campaign is set in a post-apocalyptic future in New England near the Canadian border. The backstory goes that 200 years before the game starts, World War III broke out and ended up wiping out most of humanity, trying to use these nukes made up to change human DNA. Think the DNA bomb from Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. But many people were able to hide away in bunkers fit with cryo chambers. On the surface, every human not in one of these bunkers were horribly disfigured or turned into straight-up mutants. But it also had an effect on the animals, making them literally anthropomorphic characters. Think B&A minus the shape-shifting. We worked with this group called No Straight Roads. Basically the NCR minus the cringe shit like taxes. Fuck the NCR. We played as a group of soldiers who got placed in a special forces squadron we ceremoniously called the Cheesers. Now, I know for those who have had bad experiences with furries and those systems, this sounds like a terrible thing. But actually it was great. Hell, I even decided to get my girlfriend to join since she hasn't had that much experience with TTRPGs, and she's usually up for most things I'm into, so she decides to give it a try. Now for our cast. The party consisted of 7 players, including me and my girlfriend. Everyone in this, besides our main antagonist, is a great person who we still play with to this day. Most of, if not all, are furries. DM, a friend of mine from high school who's running this show. She created this world and system with a few college friends of hers. Tater, a jolly middle-aged crocodile from Florida who acted as our tank. Boomstick, a badger with a love for explosives and my character's best friend. Henzik, a socially awkward magpie with a knack for robots. Tench, the sass master of the group. She was a diamondback from Arizona with a temper to prove. She was functionally a viper from XCOM 2. Damien Lockwood. my character. A human who woke up to this new world and learned to survive by himself using hunting knowledge from when him and his dad went hunting before the wipe, what we're calling the bombs. I acted as the party scout and sniper with my girlfriend, Rose, my girlfriend's character. A dwarf rabbit who acted as our field medic and my character's love interest. What did you expect? And last but not least, our neckbeard, Lorenzo Whitefang. An uber cool wolf with a tragic past and a real bad dude. OC, do not steal. This guy was edgy as you could think. Being a literal lone wolf, he sat brooding half the time, and anytime we'd talk about backstories, he went off about how the blood of those I once held close fog my mind too much to remember them well. Worst of all, he tried making a harem, not only out of NPCs, but the 2 female players, too. No one really knew where this guy came from. All we knew was that he was a rando while everyone else knew each other in some way, shape, or form. Now it's time for us to start. This happened a while back, and I have a terrible memory, so sorry if some things seem a little vague or out of order. Now then, the story starts as our characters are sitting in a debrief room waiting for our handler to arrive. Everyone's talking to introduce themselves to each other, with Boom and Tater getting into an arm wrestling match. Everyone's laughing and joking around, except Lorenzo. He's over there in the corner, brooding like the edgy fuck he is. Then the door opens, and there's the squad's handler, a red-tailed falcon named Lilith. Hello everyone, my name is Lilith and I'll be your new handler. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Everyone says hello in their own little ways. Lorenzo then pipes up with a, well, aren't you a pretty little thing? In a way that would make an eldritch horror uncomfortable. Now I don't know if DM didn't hear him or if she just ignored him because she simply moved on to the normal stuff. Let's get on to another situation where he was acting an ass in-game. A moment I like to call the chopper incident. Choppers in this game are basically armored vehicles. Think the Technicals from Borderlands. Anyways, we had a mission to capture an operative from the group of raiders, or whatever you want to call them, calling themselves the Red Drakes. Now, this operative had disguised themselves as a refugee along with a few other members of the Red Drakes. They caused a large explosion and stole a ship we had recovered the session before from a boss, and drove out of there in a stolen chopper. We, of course, give chase, pushing it off the road into a tree. We all get out and drag out our nice Red Drake friend. She's still alive. And for some reason, we let Lorenzo do it. Needless to say, this was a mistake. Now then, let's play a quick game of What Will Lorenzo Do Now? Does he A, be calm and civil and do a nice orderly interrogation? B, smack her around a bit and leave it there? Or C, get another PC to do good cop, bad cop? If you guess he threatened to assault her, her sister, her niece, and then castrate them with a searing knife, you guessed right. Congratulations, you won a lower faith in humanity. Needless to say, he got a firm warning from the DM telling him if he pulled this shit again, he'd be out. Now, to start with the creepiness towards the women of the group. Now, as I said earlier, Trench was a diamondback rattlesnake that was functionally a viper. And if you know vipers, you know that they have a tongue move that lets them pull enemies close so they can start their snake bullshittery. Trench did that too. She manages to grab a guy that tried running and squeezed him to death, ending the mission. Lorenzo then goes up and spits out this gem of a line. You're pretty damn good with that tongue and squeeze thing. I have something you can wrap your tongue around and squeeze. The call goes dead quiet. Trench then shoots back with, if you mean strangling you to death, then happily. And besides, I doubt there's enough there to even do that. That gets a chuckle out of basically everyone. Well, except Lorenzo, of course. He then goes to loot the bodies with an obviously shaky voice. This was before the chopper incident, so we weren't fully tuned in to his creepitude. Now, if this was the only time he did this to a player and he stopped it there, we would have been fine, but he didn't. He just changed targets. My girlfriend. Now, my girlfriend isn't what most people would call very outgoing. She's small, quiet, and pretty socially inept. Her words, not mine. AKA the perfect target for a neckbeard. Now, since everyone was messing around and posting pictures about themselves, we posted plenty of pictures of us. I don't know why, but this guy thought he could Mr. Steal Yo Girl through this game. The flirtatious comments weren't very common at first, but they became more common as time went on. Now, my girlfriend didn't seem bothered by it, but me and the DM told him to cut it out. And one day, after grabbing some lunch and heading back home, I see her sitting on the couch, obviously pissed. To confirm my suspicions, she starts ranting in Spanish, something she only does when she's really heated. She shows me these DMs on Discord from the creep, saying how he could treat her 10 times better than I could, and how I'm probably cheating on her. Now this next part could be f***ed up even without context, and it makes it even worse with context, so here you go. We are an interracial couple. I am African American and she's Caucasian/Latina. We've been dating since I was 14 and she was 15, and now we live together being 21 and 22 respectively. Now for the finale. We obviously send these screenshots to DM, and she says that if he does one more thing, he's out, and she tells him that. So in the game, we're about 2 hours in when me and her are doing some one-on-one RP that led to a fade to black. Everyone was okay with it, don't worry. Then Lorenzo pipes up, "God, can you two get a damn room? No one wants to hear about your f***ing fantasies about some fat black guy." My girlfriend goes the off. She starts going on about he's the one that made everyone uncomfortable and he's in no position to be saying shit. Then Lorenzo starts with,
This is why all you women are the f***ing same. You don't know when someone's the best thing for you. So you know what? I don't want your f***ing
racial slur,
used whole. He's probably a
homophobic slur too, you. And he got banned. The session obviously ended right there and then, and we took a few weeks break. Never heard from that guy again, luckily. After that, me and girlfriend spent some much-needed R&R together. The story does have a happy ending, though. We are still playing in that game to this day, and me and my fiancé are getting married next year on our anniversary. TLDR. Creepy incel furry goes after the wrong girl and gets banned for being racist, homophobic, and an all-around jackass. End of story. Well, we got a f***ing charmer on our hands, don't we? If it were me, homie would have been drop-kicked into the stratosphere at the first mention of a searing knife. There's a reason why most movies and television don't cross that line. And that's because there's threatening, and then there's just making everyone's skin crawl. And not in the well-written horror movie kind of way, but more like the I'm going for the eyes if this greaseball moves more than 6 inches closer to me kind of way. There's this idea perpetuated by naive edgelords that in order to make a character appear menacing or shocking that you need to immediately jump to the most vile Central American cartel shit. Example, the main character from the game Hatred. Dude was literally designed to be a vessel for delivering a feeling of unease directly into the audience's lap by doing the most f***ed up stuff imaginable. Yet universally, he's a joke in the eyes of the entire internet. We literally named him Not Important because of his cringe-ass opening line. Literally, no one fears this man. Contrast that with Mikola the Kind from the recent Elden Ring expansion, and that shit is night and day. Mikola takes the form of a literal child, wields a weapon that is just the power of love, and wants to bring about an age of compassion without war or prejudice. And yet I still get cold sweats whenever any of the characters hint at his true nature. That's right, the sadistic psychopath in a trench coat is less unnerving than the glowing femboy wielding the power of friendship. If that doesn't illustrate my point, I don't know what will. So yeah, it should go without saying that if you're in a D&D game and you want your character to be or sound menacing, for the love of God, don't use it as an opportunity to shoehorn torture porn into the game, because that's a great way to shoehorn your friendships into a wood chipper. But if that little slip-up was enough to get him drop-kicked into the stratosphere, then his perpetual creepiness towards women, coupled with a dash of racism and homophobia for flavor, is enough to get him launched into the sun. If you have respect for yourself or any of your fellow players, you should absolutely refuse to play with anyone who is unapologetically searching for the most efficient way to ruin everyone's game nights by injecting their own delusional and hateful worldview into something that's supposed to be fun. Well, luckily the story ends with our little charmer getting yeeted into the shadow realm, so we can all breathe easily because there's no way the second story is anywhere near as bad. After all, furries are known for keeping it wholesome, right? Right? Story number 2 comes from Reddit user Naked On Site and is titled Fetishist and Power Crazing GM is Affecting My Work Life. TLDR, a coworker GM'd a campaign where he heavily fetishized and harassed my character. I feel unsafe and uncomfortable towards him because of that. I never brought this up at work, but it recently started compromising my social interactions at the office, and now maybe I can't avoid talking about it to my boss. This story started some years ago before COVID, so a guy at work, the GM, was an experienced GM and wanted to form a group to play after hours. Interest was low because the GM was a very try-hard, awkward person, and most people at the office avoided interacting with him out of the strictly necessary. In the end, the only people interested were the ones who never played RPGs before. 90% were women, myself included. He ran a medium-length D&D homebrew campaign that was mostly okay, with some weird stuff here and there. But we were all inexperienced, and everyone was willing to overlook things in favor of the game and social interaction. My husband was not a coworker, but he knew the GM outside of work, and once quarantine/home office was a thing, he joined the group at the end of the first campaign. And at the start of the second, with my husband, there were 2 male players in the group, 3 males in total with the GM. The second campaign was the stuff of nightmares. It was a dark urban fantasy setting with fantasy races, mostly homebrewed. We later learned that pretty much everything in the setting was taken from creepypasta and horror games, but the GM made it look like he had invented everything. My character was a nun, and her stats were focused on combat. The GM pretty much begged me to make her a werewolf. It wasn't my original idea, but he was so excited, so I figured it would do no harm. I was wrong about that. I later found out he changed all the PCs to things that he wanted, and all personal plots were thrown out the window. On my end, the GM was heavily focused on implying that my character was not a real nun. So in almost every session, he tried to insert past relationships or imply that my character's church was fake. And every time I had to assert that she was serious about her calling and celibacy. Once the GM figured he wouldn't succeed in making previous relationships with his NPCs canon, he started focusing on trying to make my character break her vows. So every single NPC became romantically interested in my character out of nowhere. All interactions with the NPC and my character had a lot of innuendo. Once again, I had to assert that she was not interested. The GM even had private conversations with me about making my character have an affair with one of his NPCs. And once again, I had to assert that my character took her celibacy and her calling as a nun seriously. The result that was from then on, my character started being randomly harassed by all NPCs. So all the time she was called things such as Jesus's little whore, church's little bitch, etc., etc. In almost every session, my character was placed in random scenes of violence, with NPCs and assault heavily implied. Things got so bad, I was the only player to demand entire plots be removed from the campaign more than once. And even after that, things remained so bad that my husband had to speak with the GM in private and say that if it continued, both of us would quit the campaign. Only after that, the heavier stuff stopped, and my character was back to being only called the church's whore. It was only during the campaign we found out the GM was a die-hard furry. Remember how he practically begged me to make my character a werewolf? He commissioned furry, non-explicit artwork of my character without my knowledge. He commissioned art pieces for the other PCs as well to surprise us at the end of the campaign. I think it's important to say that the campaign was a miserable experience for all players, and all PCs were manipulated/misused in some way or another by the GM. There were a lot of hot anime characters making out, a lot of NPCs stealing everyone's thunder. It was a huge power trip on the GM side, but the heavy sex/abuse implied stuff was particular to my character. At this point, I wanted nothing to do with them, no social interaction at all. My husband still had the opinion that the GM was just an awkward, lonely, socially inept person who just needed a friend to point him in a better way. My husband is a big, I can change them person. So for the remainder of the quarantine, my husband remained in a very toxic friendship with the guy. The GM even joined a new campaign as a player and still made things miserable for everyone. Only then did my husband realize that the guy was indeed terrible and stopped having social interactions with him. But I still need to coexist with the GM at work. I have as little contact with him there as possible and mostly try to behave as if he didn't exist. I also avoid all social interactions with him and am pretty hostile towards him, which no one seems to notice because everyone is kinda rude with him anyways. But being all day in the same room with him stresses me out a lot. I usually turn my music all the way up when he's talking to someone in the same room because I don't like hearing his voice. I never mentioned that campaign to my bosses, HR, or anything like that because everything happened in social interactions outside of work hours. After all, that campaign was terrible for everyone, not just myself. Plus, he never behaved indecently with me IRL, and I didn't want to make a big thing out of it. Recently, other people at work decided to form a new table with my boss as a GM for the first campaign. It was supposed to be a small table, so when the GM said he wanted in, the table was already full. If he had joined, I would have left, as I decided to never play anything with him ever again. My boss said he didn't want to make it too big, and the GM could join in the next campaign, as they would all be very short. So I felt safe playing. 2 people at the new table were also in that campaign from hell. One of them even dropped early, and knew my decision of never playing anything with the GM again. We were all very surprised when last session, the GM appeared out of nowhere as a secret character and joined the party. I felt physically sick. My reaction was a lot stronger than even I imagined. I waited for like 15 minutes, got up, said I had to take care of something, and practically ran from the table. I nearly cried on my way back. And now I have to talk to my boss about dropping the campaign and why. And I'm not looking forward to it. Once again, I don't want to make a big thing out of it, but I'm also not sure if maybe this is actually a big thing and I should bring the GM's behavior to attention. My husband doesn't think this is a big thing. He doesn't think what I went through with the GM was violence or harassment, because again, everyone went through some sort of shit with him during that campaign, even though only mine was sex/violence implied, and doesn't want me to put into a delicate spotlight at work. But I really don't feel safe or comfortable around the GM in those interactions or at all, and I'm very sad that he ruined another campaign for me. Update: I spoke to my boss about it. Don't know if posting a comment here is the best way to share an update, but I really wanted to thank everyone for being kind and helping me accept that shit was f***ed up and definitely not okay. I think the first/harder part indeed was to convince myself of how messed up it was, and then process a lot of weird feelings about it. Fun couple of days. So yeah, I told my boss pretty much the entire story. He was shocked. He has low contact with the GM, and I think people at work don't talk shit or gossip about coworkers to him, which is understandable. My boss even said he let the GM join because he felt bad about how cast aside and ignored the dude seemed to be. And now he knows at least one reason why. What my boss plans to do is let the table die gracefully. He'll suddenly become too busy to schedule the next session. The GM wanted to start a new game and he'll let him try it, because pretty much no one will join. If we decide to continue the game, it will be with the hard set rule that only the OG members of the party can join. So the other players will probably hear about it, but I don't think the GM will face any real life consequences, sadly. He's part of a different team. Not IT though. Some people mentioned that he might be in IT. I'm not in IT either, so I can say that our IT team absolutely rocks. So there's nothing much my boss can directly do about it. I also don't think HR will be involved because my issues happened years ago and out of work hours. At the most, there will be more eyes and ears paying attention to any shit he does at the office. I really wanted him to be punished some way, other than being kicked from the table, but I guess that would have been unrealistic. It is kinda bittersweet though. I also spoke to my husband. It took a while to make him understand the situation, and honestly, I'm not even sure he gets it now. He understood how I feel he didn't have my back and apologized for it and promised he'll do better. I retold him the entire story and he agreed that I told it as it happened. But even then, he didn't really think that what I went through was violence. I asked, if I told this exact same story to HR, how do you think they would classify it? And he went, oh. It was like a light bulb went on inside his head. But even now, when we speak about it, he's a lot angrier at the fact that the GM openly cheated on all the games than the fact that he harassed me in front of everyone. Honestly, I think he's in denial. Like, there's a huge block every time I mention his previous relationship with the GM and call it toxic. He gets really annoyed and defensive and tells me to stop making it sound like we were dating. So he's having a hard time even accepting that friendships can be toxic or that he was in one. I think what's difficult for him in all this is to accept that he was part of it. All of it happened with him around and he didn't notice. So, yeah, not ideal. I'm not too happy about it. But this won't be the one that breaks the camel's back. I'll just stay a bit bitter for a little while and hope that he can figure his stuff out and be a better person for both of us. Once again, thank you all so much for taking me seriously and helping me go through it, and being really kind and understandable about it. I honestly couldn't have done it without your help. End of story. I wonder why everyone in the comments section assumed that our furry creep worked in IT. Quite the strange coincidence. Anyways, this guy is the big nasty. Let's talk about it. Now, I've never played D&D with any of my coworkers back before D&D became my job, so I can't spout any hard and fast rules like never play D&D with your coworkers. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't at least a little hesitant at the idea of it. Ideally, I prefer to play D&D with people I already know, and if I do play with someone I'm not familiar with, I would prefer it to be a person I could easily avoid if they turn out to be an unpleasant individual and the game goes tits up. Not the case with coworkers. It's gonna be really hard to get those copies from Ethan in accounting when you consider that he tried to convince the party to put on diapers over their fursuits that one time. As for the debate around should I talk to HR thing, absolutely you should. Not necessarily to see the GM face any sort of consequences per se, although that would be immensely satisfying and deserved, but to get as many eyes on this guy as possible. When dealing with sickos like this, it's important to remember that there's safety in numbers, and letting your boss know what was going on is absolutely the play, especially since you don't seem to be getting the backup from good old hubby dearest. Look, props to the guy for his I can fix him mindset, but at some point you gotta slap a band-aid on that bleeding heart of yours and realize that the guy is actively harassing your wife. Now, I will say I'm not sure about calling it violence just yet because the guy didn't act on any of his sick fantasies. Now, before you head down to the comments section to call me a victim blamer or some dumb shit like that, I want to make it very clear that I am not downplaying OP's story, and wholeheartedly agree that nobody deserves to experience anything like what happened. And I'm not saying what I'm saying to ease the GM out of the hot seat. The exact opposite, in fact. I'm concerned that implying that he physically acted on his urges when he didn't may end up compromising your already rock-solid case against the guy. Because what F***face has been doing is 100% unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, sexual harassment. Which, for those of you not paying attention, is not okay and absolutely does deserve consequences. You have both witnesses to back up your case and the artwork he commissioned to use as evidence. You really don't want to give this guy any room to say, actually, because any lawyer will go ham over that. Because if this does end up going farther than anticipated, this guy is already 100% fucked as he should be.
But Drake, he's just socially inept. Have a heart. Surely he deserves more chances.
Well, he's about to become real socially inept after I put a dent in his soft spot. How's that for violence? I find myself becoming increasingly more frustrated with OP's support system. Husband's over here getting more upset about cheating in a D&D game when his wife's character was repeatedly assaulted. And Bossman's idea of a solution is letting the game quietly die, instead of letting the GM's job loudly die. I understand that his hands may be tied by corporate or whatever, but it's still super frustrating to see so little being done about this guy who is actively making his coworkers feel unsafe and may even feel emboldened to continue to do so. But OP can take solace knowing that he's getting vicious mockery casted on him by a cartoon dragon on the internet, and if that's not justice, I don't know what is. But you know what else is fair and just? The fact that I keep getting sent mountains of fan art. That's right, how about we take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake. This week's fan art comes from viewer Tosh Bib. who depicts Drake and Larry taking a break from the cringe collecting to enjoy some good old sub sandwiches. This piece reminds me a lot of the old cartoons I grew up watching, and I love it when fan art gives me nostalgia for something I didn't know I had nostalgia for. I'm getting real Shaggy and Scooby vibes here. Side note, $5 footlong. If you're making sandwiches for a dragon, that better be a $5 5-foot-long. I don't know why everyone complains that Subway got rid of the $5 footlong. I mean, these sandwiches are so cheap that even hobos can afford them. First off, getting sandwiches from Subway does not mean stealing food from the bums at the subway station, which is low, even for you. Second, I doubt you're the most qualified person to talk about inflation when you just take anything you want. Quiet, communist. I'm about to lose myself in sandwich nirvana. Oh, you definitely lost something, all right. Thank you again, Tosh Bib, for submitting your art. If you'd like to see your fan art featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and send in your fan art. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.